Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Michigan, New Jersey, Tennessee, and Virginia. Listen up. WynnBET is now live in all these states, and the excitement of Wynn Las Vegas has finally landed in online sports betting and casino play. From boosted parlays to live in-game offs on every major sport, WynnBET gives you the tools to win. Sign up today for your risk-free $1,000 sports bet. Download the WynnBET app now or visit wynnbet.com to start winning.
You are listening to Dove Valley Deep Divers with Erick Trickel
and Lance Sanderson.
Ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground, picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line. Vaughn Miller did it again.
On Overtime Media.
Mile High Huddle, everybody in Broncos country. Welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. I'm your host, Lance Sanderson, and joining me as per usual is my good friend and colleague. He is Mile High Huddle's senior NFL draft analyst, the one and only Erick Trickel. Erick, what's up, buddy? How we doing?
Dude, I'm doing great, man. Got some good news about a good friend of mine, a good friend of the podcast, Luke Boglaze. I mean, he's moving on up in the coaching world. Got a new position, full-time position. Like, super excited for that. Good news with the family. A bunch of other good news. Like, just it's been a really good day, man.
Yeah, it's always good to hear from Luke. I was actually talking to you about him. I believe it was yesterday, saying you need to get him back into the fold, back on the podcast, and see if he wants to come chop it up on some of these running backs or the running game specifically. I actually kind of want to pick his brain a little bit about Nathaniel Hackett and what he knows about wide zone, outside zone, stuff like that, and kind of maybe explain a little bit of the ins and outs and the X's and O's of running the West Coast scheme and stuff like that. And especially specifically, like I said, the wide zone, and maybe, pick his brain on what you look for in a running back and stuff like that. Cause we were having a really fun conversation. Well, at least you and Nick, where I wasn't able to really join in that, but about Javonte Williams and his fit and wide zone scheme, and also about Melvin Gordon. But guys, today, a couple of big announcements, really one big announcement happened first thing this morning. The Denver Broncos are going to be bringing on, or expected to bring on, per Ian Rappaport, Dom Capers, who was formerly the defensive coordinator at the Green Bay Packers, won a Super Bowl there, also a two-time head coach, a very well-known and widely respected defensive coordinator. They're going to bring him on as a senior assistant to the expected new defensive coordinator, Ejiro Evero, who is currently with the Los Angeles Rams. But before we get into any of that, guys, I want to say hello to everybody here. Chase Wellner in the house tonight. Kathy Lund, good to see your face here. And Paul, no, you may not flag Lance and Erick for delay of podcast. We were running through some information that we had to get started, had to run through before we could actually get started tonight. So excuse me. EJ, what's going on? Jeff Noyes as well. Todd Ostendorf. Yes, we know we're a couple minutes late, guys. And just bear with us. And apologies. At least we're not like Chad and Zach, where it's like, 15, 20 minutes delayed. Like those guys don't understand what punctual means. I swear to God, sometimes it's bad.
Listen up, Broncos country. TickPick should be your first choice to buy football tickets because they save fans money by never charging any service fees ever. TickPick is the exclusive ticketing partner for the Huddle Up podcast and the Blue Wire Network.
Denver Broncos football is finally back, and there's no need to exhaust yourself searching all over the internet to find Broncos tickets anymore, because TickPick, that's TickPick, is the original no-fee ticket site and the only one you'll ever need as your go-to for all NFL tickets. TickPick got rid of all those awful service fees that the other ticket sites charge, which lets them guarantee the best prices on all of their NFL tickets. Don't believe it? If you can find better prices for the same seats on another ticket site, TickPick will give you 110% of the difference in the purchase price.
That's right, guys. When we were searching for tickets for the MHH meet and greet for Week 3 at home, Broncos versus Jets, TickPick had us locked down. So visit tickpick.com/huddle today and use the promo code HUDDLE to save $10 on your first order of Broncos tickets.
All right. Now, Erick, Dom Capers, what do you know?
I mean, the biggest thing is, like, I've seen a lot of people freaking out about, because his ending in Green Bay wasn't the best. That defense kind of floundered a lot. And, I mean, looking at that, they didn't always have consistent talent. They had some good pieces, lack of depth, just multiple issues there. But it's kind of moot. I mean, he's kind of being brought in. It's not going to be, he's being brought in to implement his scheme. He's being brought in just kind of help the inexperienced coaches. coach the coaches. And that's something that both Nathaniel Hackett and George Payton have talked about. They wanted to bring in coaches as assistants and senior assistants to help coach the coaches, to help them with the aspect of like teaching players and those aspects of it, and kind of just have a more structure to their coaching staff. So that's kind of what it's for. I mean, his base scheme is pretty much 3-4, some hybrid fronts, zone blitz, and there's going to be some of that. I wouldn't be surprised if Evero is bringing in some elements of that into his defense, and his base is pretty much what is expected to be, basically what Vic Fangio run, 2 high shells, things like that. Mm-hmm. So it's a good move for the aspect of coaching the coaches.
Yeah.
If it was a move where he was coming in to be the guy, I'd be a little bit more hesitant, just because of some issues that were there in Green Bay with his coaching. There were some elements of not putting players in their best chance to succeed, stuff like that. But I mean, for what he's being brought in to do, it's a good hire. You can't complain about it.
Well, and what you just said there about not putting his players in the best positions to succeed, especially later down the road, something that Dom Capers did, and this was actually one of the reasons why he got let go in Green Bay, was his handling of Clay Matthews towards the end. They needed an off-ball linebacker, but moving Clay Matthews, who was already starting to decline that way, was not quite the same player that he was. Getting him off the ball was not a very good idea, and that was Dom Capers' move there. So that's something you got to kind of watch out for. But I do agree with you. This is an experience deal. I've got his Wikipedia page pulled up, so bear with me for a second here, guys. Started coaching back in the early 70s, back in college. Kent State was a quality assistant, a defensive backs coach, graduate assistant as well. Broke out in the NFL in 1986 as a defensive backs coach for the New Orleans Saints, has been in the NFL ever since. Fun fact about Dom Capers, he's actually he was the very first head coach in Carolina Panthers history back in 1996. And then a couple seasons later, he ended up getting fired, and then he got a defensive coordinator job. I believe it was with Pittsburgh. Let me see this really fast. Yeah, he was a defensive coordinator in Jacksonville, and then he was hired as the very first head coach in franchise history for the Houston Texans. So he was essentially a new franchise head coach for the first time 2 times. So he's got plenty of experience as a head coach, plenty of experience as a defensive coordinator, especially in the secondary as a defensive backs coach as well. So I really like this move. It's going to bring some stability, like Eric said, coaching the coaches, getting these guys kind of in the right mind frame of what their job's supposed to be, how to kind of go about their day-to-day structure, helping organize practices and stuff like that. And because this staff is young, there's not very much experience, if any at all, specifically as far as play calling. I mean, Nathaniel Hackett has that. But as far as building up a daily schedule for an organization, nobody has that experience. So bringing in a guy like this, I wouldn't be surprised to see, with Clint Kubiak as the quarterback's coach and passing game coordinator, see Gary Kubiak be a potential sounding board or something like that. So I really like this move as well. And Eric, it's coming up aces. Again, Nathaniel Hackett and his staff is doing a great job so far. I like what's going on in Denver right now.
It's one way to look at it is it's kind of a changing of the guard. I mean, Vance Joseph was a younger coach, but the staff around him was a little bit on the older side. Vic Fangio was on the older side, and we had a lot of older coaches, and they're going young. They're going inexperienced, which may turn around and bite them in the butt, but that's just the way things are starting to head in the NFL. Wanting to go younger, wanting to go with these guys, these coaches that have huge upside that you can sit there and try to develop into be better coaches. Because we've hit that point where these older coaches are stubborn and they're stuck in their ways, not willing to adapt. Technology's bad, music's bad, things like that. And that was a big issue with Vic Fangio.
Yep.
So it's more openness and more modern thinking for what direction the NFL is going.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, with the younger players, stuff like that. Sorry, I was reading this comment from Travis Weber. I'm going to pull that here in a second. But the younger players, this generation, it's the YouTube generation, as Nathaniel Hackett likes to call it. You got to figure out a new way to connect with these guys. So music at practices, having some pop culture references. That's why I really like this. like Eric said, the changing of the guard, this new direction, these fresh ideas and stuff like that. Guys that seemingly are connecting better with these younger players. There's also some personal connections with a lot of these people as well. I know that Ejiro Evero was a quality control assistant with Dom Capers back in, I think it was in 2016, one of his last seasons in Green Bay as the defensive coordinator. Obviously, Nathaniel Hackett, Justin Outen have some connections there as well. So it is, a lot of the same old guys coming back together, but it's still a bunch of fresh ideas coming together, and they need that father figure essentially. And that's what Dom Capers is going to be here. So I'm going to, with that, guys, I'm going to grab this question from Travis Weber because it's actually a really good one. He says, good evening, Lance, Eric, Scott, and Broncos country, with stars on this as well. And thank you, Travis, for that. Eric, I was totally thinking the same. We need an experienced ear for the young blood to be being brought in. But is it too much to say that he is the defensive equivalent to Pat Shurmur? LOL JK. But I agree, it is a good hire.
No, because I think that there's enough of a track record of Dom Capers like having great years as a defensive coordinator with great defenses. Whereas with Pat Shurmur, it was really 1 year, and it was kind of a flash in the pan, and he was just average the rest of it.
Yeah.
But I could definitely see the case as to why some can feel that it's a similar hire to that. And the biggest thing for me is like Pat Shurmur was brought in as the offense coordinator. It was his scheme, his offense. He's the play caller. He's doing all that. Whereas with Dom Capers, again, he's just there to coach the coaches, be that experienced year for such a young staff, as you said. And it's great to see you back in here, Travis. We missed you last week.
Yeah, we really did. It's great to have you back, man. Hopefully everything is going well with you as well. It's great to be able to discuss with you sometimes behind the scenes. So yes, thank you, Travis. Rock Chalk jumping in here with a generous super chat. We thank you, Rock Chalk, for joining us. The schedule is finally allowing me to join in live. Until now, I've had to watch and listen later on. I just want to show some appreciation for both of you. Go Broncos. And hey, Rock Chalk Broncos, we appreciate you, man. Thank you for that. We appreciate that. We appreciate everybody in here, as always. Everyone joining into, we got 170 pairs of eyes. It looks 169 pairs of eyes in the show tonight. So yeah, I got a quick question here. Cody Damron wanted to ask, could you explain the stars? That's Facebook's version of being able to support the show. You don't have to do any of that. We don't want, I mean, we want that, but not necessarily going to, ask for that. Yeah, stars is a way of donating and supporting the show on Facebook for Facebook supporters and stuff like that. Facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. But that's what that is. So Cody, thank you for that. All right. Enough on Dom Capers, because Eric and I had this idea. Like Eric actually shot it to me on Tuesday earlier this week, and it's
something we've done on the show before.
Yeah, we actually do this pretty much. So last week we obviously did the mock draft. If you guys haven't checked out, haven't got a chance to see that, YouTube.com/Mile High Huddle, go check that out. We did a mock draft with everybody as in the chat group, being the general manager, we're your scouting staff. So usually the week after that, we actually do this. It's would you rather. So NFL draft related questions. Would you rather, like, say, for example, how about we just start right into it here? So Eric, number 9 overall is where the Denver Broncos are currently picking. And if you want to buy into the fact that they're actually, going to go into Aaron Rodgers, they're not going to be picking at number 9 overall. However, now I'm going to say that the Broncos are picking at number 9 overall. They missed out on Aaron Rodgers, and they missed out on Russell Wilson as well. And they had to go with a bridge quarterback, like let's just say specifically Marcus Mariota. And they're going to head to the number 9 overall draft pick to take a quarterback of the future. Would you rather draft Malik Willis or Matt Corral?
Neither. I don't want to take either quarterback at number 9. I don't want to take any quarterback at number 9. But being those two options, so just a quick explain what this is. It's basically given 1 or 2 players, and it can be 1 player at 9 or 1 player at 40, and so on and so forth, of which one would we rather do. And for me, in this case, I'd rather go with Malik Willis. I just think that there's so much more there to work with, and with the arm, I think it's a better arm. I think he's got far more athleticism. I just think that there's so much more to work with. And I'm not as concerned about his offense that he worked in transitioning to the NFL as I am with Matt Corral. Matt Corral has some size concerns as well. Then there's that injury. And then there's been rumblings of off-field stuff that I haven't personally dug into or anything. It's just been rumblings of it. I think it was Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks talked about it on their podcast a couple weeks ago. Outside of Nick mentioning it, that was the first time I actually really heard it. So yeah, I just kind of go with Malik Willis over Matt Corral, but I don't feel good about it. I wouldn't take any of these quarterbacks at night.
I'm with you on that, Eric. And just to be clear, I only have one first round grade right now on a quarterback, and that is Matt Corral, but it's a low first round grade. Similarly to about where I had Drew Lock. I was more comfortable taking Drew Lock at 10 than I am taking any of these quarterbacks. I have a late first round grade on Matt Corral right now, so that's where I would go. I think there's a little bit more refinement to him. He's not quite NFL ready yet, but I think that he has a shorter way to go to be NFL ready than Malik Willis would be. However, I do think that Malik Willis, with the tools that he has an incredibly high upside. There's just so much you got to do to get him there before you can actually witness that upside. So to me, I would rather, if you're taking a quarterback at 9, I would go with the more finished product that still has some upside that you can still work with and mold a little bit, and really compares nicely to a Marcus Mariota. They have very similar skill sets. So that would be the way that I would go in that certain situation. But if you're taking a quarterback at 9, you're doing it the wrong way anyways this season. Michael Ronquillo jumping in here, nothing to say, just showing some love with a very generous stars donation. And Michael, we appreciate you, buddy, as always, for joining us. And I know that everybody, as far as the Huddle Up Podcast Network is concerned, appreciates all of your guys' support. Claude jumping in here as well. Go Broncos. Thank you for that, Claude. Eric, go ahead.
I was going to say is one thing that's awesome about the Senior Bowl is how much they're going forward with technology aspects of it. And talking about arm strength, like everybody expected Carson Strong to be up there. He was near the bottom with all the measurements for that, with the velocity, the miles per hour, the spin rate, all that stuff like that. And Malik Willis was consistently there at the top. And you want this combination of tools and traits and then having the intelligence on it. And the tools and traits alone, I think, is far more supreme with Malik Willis.
Yeah.
You're trying to compete with Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. You got to go heavy into that aspect and hope you can bring the other stuff along. That's also part of why of the two, I'm going Malik Willis because, again, better tools, better traits. You can go heavier into that and then work on the other stuff.
That's a fair point as well. Like I said, the intelligence there with Corral, it's a little bit more pro-friendly of a scheme. They run some more pro-friendly concepts, but it's really not a pro scheme by any stretch of the imagination.
For Corral?
For Corral.
No, they hardly run any pro concepts, man.
Okay,
it's messy, heavy RPO playing off of that open receiver, easy reads.
Okay, I've got it backwards then. I'm sorry, apologies there. Regardless, I think that you see, like I said, a more finished product with Corral. I'll just go back to that. More finished product with Corral with where he's at, and would rather go in that direction to try to get him on the field earlier, and then maybe hopefully those tools that he does have. He's got a live arm, and he's got pretty decent footwork. It's more consistent than Malik Willis. So there's something more like a steadier base to work with Willis to me. So that's why I would go that way. Moving on here, we got Malcolm Brown jumping in here with a super chat and a would you rather question for you. It actually ties into the next one that I had here. Would you rather reach farther for a right tackle or for an edge? And I'm going to narrow this down specifically here. Would you rather take Trevor Penny at number 9 overall, or wait for somebody like Nicholas Petit-Frere or Bernard Raymond at 40 overall? Yeah, I came with the juice, dude. I hope I got some good ones here.
Honestly, I think I would go with Trevor Penning. When I released my first initial top 75 board and my position rankings, he was right up there as a top 15 pick for me, depending on what we saw at the Senior Bowl. He didn't show enough for me to really drop him a lot. I like Bernard Raymond. NPF, I think he's tumbled for me a little bit, doing more digging on him, watching into him. So he's kind of fallen for me. I wouldn't want him at 40. I'm not sure I'd want him in top 50 really. And Bernard Raymond, he's helped himself a lot. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's there at 40. If he was, it would be hard to pass up because in that opinion, it's value, but you're betting on him being there.
Right.
there's a good chance that Trevor Penning's there. I would take that because I think he's got great upside. I love the attitude. I know there's people I've spoken to that they weren't as high on the attitude. There was a situation where he supposedly punched one of the defensive linemen in the gut. Led to some issues with that. One play he threw it, the edge rusher basically into the quarterback's knees. Desmond Ridder was the quarterback. So there's things you got to clean up. He opens his chest up pretty easily, pretty early on. So there's things you got to work with, but there's so much you have that you can work with that it's just a bet that I'd be willing to take.
Yeah. Hey, guys, if you have any of these questions, please feel free, drop a super chat really fast so we make sure that we can grab all of those. Or if you're on Facebook, stars as well, we can actually see those. So that way we don't miss anybody. If you guys got a would you rather question, please don't feel free, jump into the conversation. We'll answer as many of these as we can. I'm with you, honestly. As far as Gary, I'll get to you here in a second. I want to wrap this up for a second on Trevor Penny. One thing that I didn't like about him when I watched him the other day, I was watching the Southern Illinois game that he had, and then I can't remember the other one off the top of my head, but I watched a couple of his games. He moves so well. He's got great athleticism. He's good in his pass sets. He's physical. He's aggressive. He's got good, violent hands. Like, there's a lot to like with him. But something you see with him way more often than not is when he gets out in front in space, he whiffs really bad. He drops his head. His hands get low. He doesn't stay square to his target, and he misses a lot of open field blocks where if you're in an outside zone scheme and you get out in front of a play like that, you need to be able to make contact and then finish the block going that way. And I wasn't a fan of him there. Like, that's a big knock to me, especially knowing that we're going into this wide zone scheme that Nathaniel Hackett wants to run. That is a big red flag to me. It's something you can coach him, though. He gets over his skis a little bit and gets off balance. So that to me is something, but those are all coachable issues. At 9 might be a little rich for me. However, if that's the direction that the Broncos want to go, I would be perfectly okay with that.
Yeah, you can't teach size. You can teach the techniques. You can teach the process, and you can teach the other aspects. You can't teach size, and size is something that he has.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Gary Leeds Palmer jumping in here with a generous stars donation here. Hey, Lance, Eric, and Scott. Good to see that Hack is bringing in some experience to support his picks. I like the proactive approach. And yeah, Gary, you're jumping. We're in lockstep here. Like, quite honestly, we both really like this move. I saw some stuff on Twitter earlier today that didn't make a whole lot of sense. And I don't know necessarily the history behind Dom Capers in Green Bay, but there was a lot of people saying, and it was like jokingly, I guess, was saying that if Dom Capers is actually coming here, goodbye to Aaron Rodgers because he's not going to go be around Dom Capers. And I don't see the logic behind that. Eric, do you know anything more about that?
No, I don't. I think it's as from the outside in with that. I mean, it's very well known that there was a lot of issues between Rodgers and the old coaching staff under Mike McCarthy. So that could be part of the reason there, not wanting to go back into that aspect of it. But I don't know. I can't speak how much of that was Mike McCarthy, how much of that was Dom Capers.
Right. I don't know why there would be any issues there. Yeah. To me, especially in an advisory role where he's just going to be kind of coaching the coaches and not have really any say on what actually happens on the field.
And on top of that, he's not going to have much to do with the offense.
Right. Exactly.
It'll be strictly working on the defense side of the ball. So if he has anything to do with players, it's just going to be on that side of the ball. He might see Aaron Rodgers passing through the building.
Yeah, as Scott put it in our private chat, like, he may never even see a football field. He's probably just going to be a backroom guy pretty much the entire time that he's in Denver. And who knows how long that's going to be? Is it just this season? Is he going to be on staff and moved into a full-time advisory role for the length of time that Nathaniel Hackett's here? Like, what does Dom Capers want to do? We don't know those details yet. We probably will never find those out unless we, get some source information. So, I mean, I'm about this move. I really do like it. I also don't think that it's necessarily a super newsworthy deal. So we kind of discussed it a little bit. If you guys want some more of our thoughts on that, go back to the beginning of the show and you can hear some more about that. Travis Weber jumping back in here as well. Personally, I would bring in Marcus Mariota on like a 2-year deal and ride it out the last year with Locke and draft a quarterback in 2023. Draft an edge rusher if we don't get Rodgers or Wilson. Eric, what do you think about that?
I mean, if you don't land one of the big veteran quarterbacks, you may as well roll with Locke and let him lead you to a top 5 pick. Try to get one of the top quarterbacks next year. I mean, CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Like there's some other guys that could potentially help themselves. Like next year's quarterback class is
Grayson
looking at this
McCall
one better than this year. So I'm fine with playing into that.
I'm all right with it too. I like Marcus Mariota is intriguing to me. Former, I guess we'll throw it in quotations here. Former franchise quarterback for the Tennessee Titans. If you look really like at him statistically, he's not a terrible quarterback. He's got great mobility. He can throw on the run pretty well. There's just something that didn't work out with him. I'm not saying, throw like all your chips on him as your last gasp, to try to get the situation fixed completely. But it would be a lot more fun to watch a guy running around the field and throwing the football and using his legs to extend some plays than it was watching Teddy Bridgewater this last year. Like, let's just be honest here.
And Sinji actually comes in and brings up another part. Good point is being a loser for another year is hard. It is.
Yep.
And what's going to make that harder is that there's a new owner coming.
Yep.
George Payton, Nathaniel Hackett with a new owner coming. Like, I don't know how on the outside, I don't know how secure their jobs would be if they come in with a new owner and they don't go out and have done something big to go get a quarterback.
Yeah.
Because new owners, like if that doesn't happen, changes are coming. So that's why I think that they go get one of those quarterbacks. But this is a situation of if they don't, hopefully it would be a situation where if that happened, if they missed out, the new owner would be understanding, giving them another year, giving them the chance to go find somebody else. But you just never know when new owners come into play.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so hard. I mean, especially, let's see, we got the Byron Allen news last week, or earlier this week, I think is what it was, that Byron Allen announced that he was going to be putting a bid together. I saw something about Kanye West and Antonio Brown, or like, it was so dumb. I think that's more of a joke.
Antonio Brown made some comment about it.
Yeah, like we just don't know. And new owners, depending on who it is, they could come in and tear down the entire facility, move it all the way out by DIA and build a whole new infrastructure complex for the Broncos. And, it's so hard to tell what's actually going to happen here. So it's going to be interesting to see it play out. But
I think it's safe to say that they won't move out of Denver, though.
No, I don't think they will either.
That's pretty safe to say.
There's such a great market here. This fan base, it travels forever. I mean, it's not only just Colorado. I live in Wyoming. Erick obviously lives in Alaska. This is not a geographical, location. It's a state of being a Broncos fan. But you've got like Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, parts of Utah, Nebraska, North and South Dakota, a little bit in there as well. New Mexico, some parts of Arizona. Like Broncos country is big. It's a big, gigantic spot because it's the closest team to all of those states. Like, why would you want to leave a place where people are going to flock to your city to bring you lots and lots and lots of money to come and see the Broncos play? What they should do is, like I just said, is build a complex outside of DIA, redo the infrastructure out there, throw up a whole bunch of hotels, build a stadium with a rollback dome, and vie for either the Combine or the NFL draft or a Super Bowl here in the next 10 years. That would be pretty cool. Peter Middleton jumping in here, going back to Trevor Penny in this offensive tackle class, which seems to be pretty deep. Erick and I were talking about this earlier before we came live. Take the best tackle in Penning. Our new quarterback needs the most help that he can get. Now, Peter, I'm not sure if you're saying Penning's the best tackle in the class, because that would be an interesting conversation. But as far as the tackles potentially available at number 9, Penning could be the best tackle available. Erick, why don't you talk about top 5 guys really fast? Obviously, outside of Evan Neal, you've got Ike Ekwonu, Charles Cross, Trevor Penning, and then who?
Like, it's tough for me at the moment because I think that there's a few guys that are pretty close to it. I think Bernard Raymond's not too far from it, and he's been getting a lot of hype going around. Max Mitchell, I think first round's a little bit early for me, but I believe it's the guys over at Draft Network, and I think Dane Brugler also talked about it on the podcast about being like a mid-late first-round pick. And it's kind of leads to another point, like not just the offensive tackles, but this class and overall. Like, there's been so many players I've seen more than normal of like, oh yeah, this guy could be a first-round pick. It's just it's a grab bag class, and it's really lacking the talent at the top, which helps lead to that. So I mean, it's a good offensive line class, especially at tackle. There's plenty of guys Lance and I are sitting here working on making our top 100 board, and we started off with 15 names at offensive tackle, and I think we're sitting like just under 10 now. We're still trying to narrow it down a little bit, and we're looking at the 10. I'm not sure who we can cut from there. So it's a very strong class, and don't have to get a tackle early. You can get one later, and hopefully be able to develop them and get them going and become something.
Yeah. Clayton Huron says, great show as always. Top it off later. He's got some family time and stuff like that. And Clayton's a great supporter of the show. Just want to give him a quick shout out. Have a great weekend, buddy. Hopefully we'll see you next week on Friday. But Michael jumping back in here. I would rather have a right tackle in the NFL draft because the Broncos need to protect the right side of the offensive line. Thoughts? That's probably the number one. Well, I guess I can't say that because quarterback is obviously the biggest need. I really think edge rusher is the number one need. Like outside of the quarterback position, edge rusher is the number one need on this team. I would be willing to go and get Bobby Massey back, see what he does with that athleticism in this new scheme, and see if you can kind of just kick that can down the road a little bit. But tackle would be interesting. I would be okay with that. But edge and cornerback to me are bigger needs, honestly. Like go spend a little bit of money on Bobby Massey and have some experience there, and maybe roll with if you get Aaron Rodgers or you get a Russell Wilson, something like that. You can work around Bobby Massey's failures as an offensive tackle and pass protection. But throwing a rookie at that right now, probably not the idea that I would prefer to go in, but I could get behind it.
I'm fine going a veteran out for right tackle as long as it's not Bobby Massey.
Of course you are.
Well, I mean, the thing is like he was worse in every statistical category than the offensive tackles were in 2020. Mm-hmm. It's going under the radar that's the case. He had a higher pressure rate. He had a higher sack rate than both DeMar Dotson and Elijah Wilkinson combined. When you take all their numbers, it was an issue of an issue that they had to switch him, which is why I think that there's some that believe Bobby Massey was great, but they didn't have an option really to go back behind Bobby Massey. You had Cameron Fleming and Calvin Anderson, and when they both got time, they both made it quite clear that they're really not options to be starters. Calvin Anderson just can't play on the right side. He does better on the left side, and Cam Fleming is a terrible tackle.
Mm-hmm. I don't even think that he'd be a great guard. Like
his play is rough. So I'm fine going and getting a veteran guy, just not Bobby Massey.
It was just a name to throw out there. I'm not sure what the free agent tackle class looks like. So it more or less like something like that. And like I said, as far as a tackle that can move and get out front, has pretty good athleticism, maybe being in a zone scheme would help him just a little bit. So that was more the direction that I was going there. And also quick passing, getting the quick passing game going would be a little bit better as well. And I know you're probably going to go pull some statistics and numbers and stuff like that, since that's what you always do. You got to prove me wrong. It's not it's just, unless Eric doesn't prove me wrong at least once.
Like the one of the worst things about watching Bobby Massey was his movement. Like climbing to the second level, like it was rough, constantly missing. Like I'm not wanting him in the outside zone, but as Scott said behind the scenes, it's like paid $2.2 million for him. We got what we paid for, and that's exactly the case. Yep. And now you have a chance to go and pay a little bit more for a better option. Go do it. If you're not going into the draft class, go get a better guy.
Yeah, Nathan jumping in here with a $5 super chat, actually continuing on this offensive line prospects conversation. Does our strategy for drafting offensive lineman prospects in Hackett's scheme differ versus last year? Will we draft based on scheme fit or best offensive lineman available? Yes and yes. It will more than likely you will draft the best offensive lineman available that will pseudo fit this scheme. Now, Scott and Eric and I were actually getting into a conversation about this, about most general managers won't go in there looking for scheme specific guys. They're going to just draft the best available player that they have there. However, there's some conversations going on behind the back channels and stuff like that. Is there a better scheme fit, better athletic traits that you have for a certain scheme that might lead you in a different direction? Or if you have similar grades on a player, scheme might come into to be that tiebreaker essentially. Eric, what do you think about that though?
I definitely agree. And I think that all the positions in the NFL, I think offensive line is one of the ones that it really matters the most.
It does.
You don't want big power guys who can't move working in an outside zone.
No.
But that just that's part of what goes into the evaluation a little bit from the coaching aspect of it. It plays a part in it. And the Broncos, like, it's not just last year, the last couple of years of what they were looking for an offensive lineman has changed. The Tani Moody, Lloyd Cushenberry, they're not the best fits. They're not the best movers. Their fit in this is going to be really rough. I think it'll be easier to try and get Cushenberry to fit than Moody. But it's just not the best way to go about it. And so you want guys who are athletic, that are strong, that can move well, guys that can get outside. And some guys have that scheme versatility. Some guys don't. And you're going to be looking for at least a little bit for guys who can fit what you want to do off the offensive line.
Yeah, and Scott actually came in and he's dropping. He says this is his guy at right tackle, 24-year-old free agent Chukwuma Okorafor, and I liked him a lot as well. Big, tall, athletic, strong guy, plays pretty much in any scheme. He filled in a couple of years ago against the Broncos. It was in Pittsburgh. I think that was the game that Locke got hurt. And the Steelers were actually down their starting right tackle and starting right guard. They started two guys that had never started a game, and Chukwuma Okorafor was one of those guys. He gave up 1 pressure, 0 sacks, and had a monster game. Eventually became the starting right tackle for that team. If he's a free agent this year, yeah, let's go, buddy.
Yeah, and with that too is like you want guys who have power. You don't just want athletic guys. And there's a lot of disconnect there with fans that I see is like, oh, let's go get the athletic guy. He's athletic. And they're talking about guys who don't really have the strength to match up. And that's where the Broncos went wrong a few years ago with Ty Sambrailo. Like, dude was athletic. Dude could move. He just lacked any kind of strength or power to him. No core strength, couldn't anchor. So, I mean, that just goes to that whole thing of you do look for guys who can fit multiple schemes and go for them. And those guys typically go higher than guys that are more scheme limited.
Yeah, I gotta give a shout out to my to one of my friends, Kevin Big Dog Jenkins. He's a guy that was a really good friend of mine. I went to school with his kids. He was actually our offensive line coach back at the Wheatland High School. Love that guy. Can't wait to see him this weekend. We're actually going to go down and go check out. He has a bowling alley and everything. It's a great dude. Anyways, when they drafted Ty Sambrailo, he was like, I don't think I've ever seen an offensive tackle with sweeter feet than Ty Sambrailo, but dude is weak. He has no upper body strength. He can move around and do everything you want to, but he's got to get stronger. And I can't wait to show him this clip because to give him the shout out there. But love you, Big Dog. All right.
I remember real quick. I remember watching scouting Ty Sambrailo, and I can't remember who it was against or anything. I just remember that there was an edge rusher who was more of an athletic edge rusher that just got underneath his pads and pushed Ty Sambrailo over onto his back and like 5 yards away and ended up blowing up the quarterback for it. What ended up being a strip sack. Like that play stood out, and it was in college. And there was a similar play that happened in the NFL too. I think it was with Atlanta, and I just like that's like shouldn't be shocked. Like that's who he is.
Yep. All right, Chase Wellner jumping in here on Super Chat. If we miss out round 1, who are your favorite day 2 offensive tackles? Bernard Raymond's one. Max Mitchell is another one. Oh, damn it. I cannot remember his name. And I don't have I don't have it pulled up yet. Damn it. Eric, help me out here. Save me. I'm drowning. Day 2 offensive tackles. I got Raymond and Max Mitchell, and those were the only 2 I could remember off. Nicholas Petit-Frere, sorry. That's another one I like.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot to work with NPF, and it's just a matter of just really getting that technique down. There's been some stuff coming up behind the scenes with this, you got to always take some of what you hear about off the field with a grain of salt, without being able to talk to them, without being able to have, go talk to coaches. It's hard to really speak. It's just hearsay for me. But there's stuff that is like kind of like makes me iffy on it if it's true. But I really like Raymond. I really like Mitchell. If either one of them are there with the first Broncos second round pick, depending on what they do in the first round, obviously I would go that way. I also like Braxton Jones a little bit, and taking him in the late third, I would be opposed to.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's get back to this Would You Rather here now that we're done through. Actually, Lawrence jumping in here on throwing some stars down here. What's the best wide receiver in this draft, guys, just in case we get rid of Jerry Jeudy?
Pick your guy. Like there's four or five guys, 5 receivers that you're going to hear a lot of. This guy has this one as number one. This one has number one.
It's a good wide receiver class.
I'm still working on finishing up my grades for the top wide receivers. Right now, it's looking like it's going to be Treylon Burks. But I mean, again, it's pick your flavor. What do you want for it?
Well,
if the Broncos get rid of Judy, I'm just not sure they go and take one early. It's a pretty deep wide receiver class.
Mm-hmm.
And there's options that you can get later on that can help fill what you'll be losing in Jerry Judy.
Yeah.
And even KJ Hamler, who we're not sure how long it'll take for him to get back.
Well, and like you said, I mean, there's 4 or 5 guys at the top. You got Garrett Haskins, Chris Olave, the Ohio State kids. Jameson Williams from Alabama is a good name. Treylon Burks is in there. I know Christian Watson from North Dakota State is getting a lot of love in the second round.
Drake London is the one that's right at the top.
Yeah, the USC kid. There's Calvin Austin or Watson. Calvin Austin. Calvin Austin, the Memphis kid. Jitterbug kid, 5'7", 5'8". I think he was 5'8", 173 or something like that at the Senior Bowl. Jitterbug, in and out, kind of quick mover kind of a guy. That'd be a good slot receiver option there. A late round guy that I really like because he went to the University of Montana, where I mean, all of my family lives in Montana. Samori Toure, and long speed, decent route runner, all right athlete, but not like a great athlete. He transferred to the University of Nebraska this last year. He had 2 touchdowns in the Shrine game. One of them was on a fade. The other one was I think it was a quick screen or something like that. Late round name to watch, probably if he gets drafted at all. But Samori Toure is a guy that kind of replaces that skill set pretty well. So that would be another name to look out for. Let's see here. Peter Middleton jumping in here. Tackles take 2 or 3 years to develop, right? So how does the tackle class compare to previous years and the 2023 class? Eric, I'm going to let you take this one away.
You can pretty much, I mean, it takes time to develop, but you can get pretty good results from tackles right away. Interior offensive lineman is a little bit more bumpy. For where it is, I would say that this tackle class, it's not as strong as 2020. That's the year with Tristan Wirfs and all that.
Yep.
Like they just had, that was just loaded at the top. I don't think this year's quite as loaded. Despite multiple names that can be talked about there, I think the top 4 or 5 guys from that class are better than the top few guys from this class.
The thing that makes it weird is the thing. Sorry, to jump in here. The thing that makes it weird is that tackle class was elite. Like even Andrew Thomas, who has struggled coming out of Georgia up in New York, he was the first tackle taken, right? Tristan Wirfs, he bounced back
so much.
Yeah, he bounced back a lot. He really banked on those athletic tools in New York to try to get him back or get him into playing shape. But those 4 offensive tackles were definitely worthy of being in the top 10, top 15. You know, that's where they all went. Jedrick Wills was tremendous in Cleveland. Tristan Wirfs, obviously all pro. Those guys were worth it in a really good class as well. Like that 2020 class was a great class. Don't get me wrong, this 2022 class is an okay class, but there's not really a top flight player that really deserves to be in that top 10 pick other than maybe Evan Neal. Like Ike Ekwonu, there's some questions about the athleticism there, play strength as well. Not play strength, length and stuff like that. His physicality is really good, but he would be tackle 6 or 7 in that class and not worth a top 15 pick. But this year, the top end of this class is so weak all the way around. That's why you're getting guys like Trevor Penny, who's maybe a top 25 pick, maybe any other year, as a top 10 pick this year. That's why you're getting Ike Ekwonu. That's why you're getting a Charles Cross, who's terrible as a run blocker, but arguably one of the best pass blockers in this class. There's a reason why these guys are rising up. It's because all of the other positions in this draft class are that bad. Like it's not a great class overall, quite honestly.
It's not a top heavy class.
Right.
It's not talented, not as great on the top. It's a good class. There's good depth to it. Just not the talent at the top. One of the things with this is like just this last week in a span of 3 hours, I think it was on Monday, might've been Tuesday. I saw a guy at Pro Football Focus tweet out and say, Charles Cross is the number one offensive tackle, and if you don't agree, you're telling on yourself. I saw somebody from, I believe it was The Athletic, that said Evan Neal is the top tackle in this class, and if you don't believe that, you're telling on yourself. And then I saw somebody else, I think it was from either the Draft Network or the Draft Wire, that said Ike Ekwonu is the top tackle in this class, and if you don't agree with that, you're telling on yourself. Like, there's no consensus number one on this offensive class, and it's not the same as it was with 2020, where there's not a consensus, wasn't a consensus with that. It's because like they each have some glaring weaknesses. They're not tier one prospects like we had multiple guys up in 2020. 2020. This year, there's a few guys that are like tier 2, like middle low tier 2, high tier 3. And so that's what you're kind of looking for, and that's what it is. And then as for the 2023 class, outside of quarterback, I don't look a year ahead. Like, unless it's a guy who I happen to watch thinking he would declare and he ends up going back to school, I don't really look for guys a year ahead.
There's a Utah guard that I mentioned to you a couple of months ago. I was watching a Utah game, and he actually caught my eye. I think he's a redshirt, or is he a true sophomore or redshirt sophomore? I think he's a redshirt sophomore. Wasn't going to declare. I can't remember his name. I know he's from Utah, the 73 or 75, I think is his number, right guard. I like him a lot, and I think that he actually has the tools if he grows to be a first-round pick. That's me. Like, I don't remember these names until I absolutely have to. So looking forward to another class, again, outside of quarterback, or maybe, a freshman catches my eye, like Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas. That guy is freaking phenomenal. Like, I cannot wait to get him under the microscope as far as a draft prospect is concerned, because he might be the next first-round running back that goes top 15 that's actually worth it. Leaf, Roebuck jumping in here. My wish list is edge ×2, offensive lineman ×2, D-line, and then secondary or linebacker. Thoughts? This is actually, you know what? Let's go right back into this here, Eric. The would you rather. If you're not getting Rodgers at 9, last week you and I went with Jermaine Johnson, the edge defender from Florida State, at number 9 overall. So you're not getting Aaron Rodgers. You're not getting Russell Wilson. You're not making a trade for an elite level quarterback. You're going to just kind of run through it. Number 9 overall, you're taking an edge defender. Are you okay taking another edge defender on day 2 in this class? Like quite on. There's enough depth there. You can get a starter on day 2 for sure.
I mean, does a bear crap in the woods? I mean, just go back and look at what the Broncos edge rushers did last year. It's absolutely asinine to me that at the end of the season, Von Miller was still the number 3 pass rusher in total pressures. Still. And how many games did he miss for the Broncos? And that's just his time with the Broncos. It's completely asinine that was the case. I know that there's so much hype around Jonathan Cooper. Great. You can have hype over his 1.5 good games. Malik Reid, I was saying last year how overrated he is. And I think now everybody's kind of come to that point, he's very overrated. As long as coverage holds up, hey, he might get a pressure, but no consistency there. Bradley Chubb, outside of the injury, being injured and then the slow comeback, it was very disappointing watching him. But I'm not ready to fully write him off just yet, because how much of that was still coming back from that, from the bone spurs. So unsure there, but you got to be able to get after the quarterback. You got to be able to provide help to Draymond Jones, who was the only consistent pass rusher through last season. Taking 2 edge rushers, for me, sign me up. That would be not necessarily ideal, but that would be a great outcome. Getting 2 early pass rushers, especially in this class, being able to get either Jermaine Johnson or David Ojabo, or one of these top edge rushers, and then going and getting Boye Mafe or some of these other guys, Cameron Thomas or Logan Hall.
Dude, let me interrupt you here,
because
because
in the second round,
if you're gonna go edge defender at 9 and then take another one on day 2, let's bank on some athleticism and go with David Ojabo and Nick Bonito. I was watching some Nick Bonito the other day. He's raw, but he's got great length. He's a little bit thin, so you need to build some bulk to him, but he's got a frame that actually can handle that. Not quite the most natural pass rusher, but there's a lot of tools and a lot of traits there. And you can play him off the ball a little bit and have him as a coverage linebacker. He blitzes well up the A gaps as well. Like, I like Nick Bonito a lot. Like, let's get some athleticism off the edge and see what happens. David Ojabo and Nick Bonito, if you can tie that up 9 and let's say 64 or maybe even 75, like you take Nick Bonito number 75 overall. I'm about that. Like, I also like Boye Mafe, but I think that he's going to go a lot higher. Dane Brugler the other day said that there's potential possibility that Boye Mafe might be a first-round pick. Like, I don't know a whole lot about any more background about him. I was watching him at Minnesota. I didn't like the way they used him very much, but there was a lot of tools, a lot of traits there. But if you can get Boye Mafe at 64 and like a Jermaine Johnson play some strength, like, yeah, there's 2 different ways that you can go there. This edge class is a lot of fun to scout through. I'm having fun with it for sure.
I want to come back on Nick Bonito here in a second, but with Boye Mafe, I think it was Daniel Jeremiah, might have been Dane Brugler in it was in one of their podcasts, threw out Odafe Owe as the comparison for Boye Mafe. Mm-hmm. As for Nick Bonito, I like him. He offers more as a pass rusher than Malik Reid. Yep. And he offers up more as a run defender than Malik Reid because Malik Reid can't do either. Like, his run defense, like, there's a reason why teams consistently targeted his side of the field when he was out there. He was atrocious at it, easy to blow off. Like, you got to improve that aspect of it too, because the Broncos, there are multiple games where they just got ran over. And Malik Reid, there's a big reason why. Another big reason why was Mike Purcell shooting gaps, guessing wrong, leaving up a huge hole. Like, so you got to do something to improve that.
Yeah.
And even then, I mean, honestly, Malik Reid, he's a restricted free agent. He's going to be an unrestricted free agent next year. Bradley Chubb's going to be unrestricted free agent next year. With this draft class, not necessarily all in the first 3 rounds, but this is the draft class I'd be looking at 3 edge rushers, honestly. Like, go help improve that depth about it because the depth got so exploited. You have 2 guys that are impending free agents. Like, go and just help look at the future of the position and help with that.
Yeah, I don't disagrry with you on that. I like Jonathan Cooper. I think that there's still some room to grow with him, but Malik Reid,
he likes length, man.
He does. He does
so much.
He does, but there were still some quality flashes with him, and I think that you can kind of work around that. Yeah, he doesn't meet the necessary benchmarks for the length. I think he only had 32.5-inch arms, which it's not great. You don't want that. Like, you got to be 33 at least on the edge, especially in the NFL. And if you're not 33, you better have like some better leverage. And he doesn't get his pads down enough, but there was still some flashes with Jonathan Cooper. And I think that you can still work with him a little bit, but I'm not going to disagree with you. This edge class is so spectacular. I mean, even another guy that I was watching the other day, and I'm going to retract a statement that I told you because you're absolutely right. Magi Sanders is a guy that you could potentially bring in as an early day 3 pick. He's a University of Cincinnati edge rusher. Good length, good strength, plays decently against the run, but not great. Erick actually talked to me about it, and he says you might as well lay down in the run because he's not that great. Offers up a lot of upside as a pass rusher, and that's where I'm going to come back with you. Is yes, his run defense. He had like 1 great snap against Evan Neal, and it was terrible. Other than that, it was absolutely atrocious. Like doing a second look, Magi Sanders. I wouldn't take him in the first 3 rounds, but if he's there late round 4, early round 5, like if he's available, sure, why not take a flyer on the guy? Especially if you go and you already have addressed that position early in the draft, like with the Jermaine Johnson, the David Ojabo. Maybe you can get your hands on Boye Mafe or another late round guy, Jeffrey Gunter from Coastal Carolina. I like him a lot as well. That plays with great strength and stuff. Like there's a lot of different ways to go with this edge class, and it's going to be so much fun, guys. So please stay tuned, milehighhuddle.com, because we're going to bring you all as much of this draft content as we possibly can. Lawrence Rivera jumping in here. What could the NFL do to help quarterbacks transition better to the NFL? I'm going to start this off by saying I don't necessarily think it's the NFL that needs to make the change. It's college. College football needs to make that change. They went to this easier, not calling plays in the huddle, calling plays from the sideline, one read and throw, stuff like that. They're turning out a bunch of guys with a lot of tools, but they're not teaching them the X's and O's part of the game. Like, they're not teaching them how to understand rotational coverages, understanding what defenses are trying to do to stop the offense from doing what they want to do. The college game is where the changes need to happen. And the NFL can help that by getting some of these coaches that get terminated and say, all right, go down and help some of these young guys. You know, like this old guard that everyone keeps talking about. It's the old guys club, you know, this exclusive being that is the NFL. Like, everybody knows everybody. They're all interconnected and stuff like that. Get some of these guys at the college level. Help some of these young quarterbacks grow, and that, especially offensive tackles as well. But get some of these young quarterbacks in NFL schemes, or schemes that are similar, that run more NFL style concepts, and make them call plays at the line of scrimmage. Make them understand what defenses are trying to do, and that will help them transition better to the NFL. And I think that is the best way, at least in my opinion. Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's on the NFL. There's a lot of it with, and we've seen it with certain players here in Denver. They get that big money, they get that check, and they're not really interested in it, in playing the game. They're interested in going and playing Madden and being the starting quarterback, because that's the only way they can be a starting quarterback.
Yep. Well, and Scott jumped in here in the private chat and said, I'm making $10 million a year to win games. Piss on your development. I don't care. And that's a bad part of coaching. And I understand, you know, they're just trying to make it easy, trying to make it so that these quarterbacks can come in and have some kind of success. But if you're winning games and then churning out NFL players, don't you think you're going to make more money? Like, making more money incentivizes these coaches to get these players developed correctly. And if you churn out a first round pick at the quarterback position, or a first round pick at the wide receiver position, throw some incentivized bonuses in there, like, negotiate that out.
And in college football, you make money by winning games. That's what matters.
That's true. That's very true.
It doesn't matter. I mean, with recruiting, it can help if you get guys to the NFL, but it doesn't matter if you develop them. You can make them look good in your scheme and get them drafted high. And that's all that matters, because then you can sit there like, yeah, I turned this quarterback into a first round pick. What he did in the NFL, it's not that coaches, that recruit, that team, that college team's responsibility. That becomes the NFL's. So there is a disservice from college coaches here, but I mean, they're not there to coach these kids up exactly. They're there to coach them up to do what they need them to do to win games so they can make their money. And in the NFL, it's pretty much the same thing. You got to develop, you got to have that drive and that motivation and everything to sit there and do it on yourself. I mean, they'll help you a little bit, but again, it's a similar thing. Is they're getting paid a lot of money. They're going to teach you what they need to teach you to try to win games in their system, and do what needs to be done. That's what matters. I mean, it's not really anything anybody can do. It's except for the players. Like, get used to that and adapt to that and be ready.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you, but that's just the way that I think about it. Like, you have a pipeline of 153 Division I schools, or however, and then all of FCS as well. You have a pipeline that you're drawing your talent from. Don't you think that as the NFL, you would try to work with that, even a developmental league? And they've tried multiple times. You've got the Alliance of American Football that flamed out. The XFL flamed out a couple of years ago. It sounds like that might be coming back. The USFL is starting up leagues. I think it's in April here. Developmental leagues and getting these guys around NFL coaches would definitely help a lot. But you have, like, that's your pipeline. That is where you start with your scouting and development, is at the college level, because football is a violent game, guys. We all already know this. Injuries 100% guaranteed in the NFL. You will get hurt. Okay. Like in all of football, it does not matter. You start with your pipeline. You start with the main base of your pipeline and get these players ready to go as soon as you possibly can. And starting at the college level and not developing these other leagues where now you're going to send running back X from, let's just say Sincere McCormick, for example, the UTSA kid. They're going to send him to the USFL to go and play, a 7 or 8 game season in spring, and then expect him to come back in August and play, in training camp and be ready to go for the NFL level. Why would you do that? Like, that just it doesn't make sense to me.
You chose the worst position, because running back is the one position where you don't want them playing extra games.
That's what I'm saying.
Because their bodies take so much damage. So you can't sit there and you can't want these other leagues and everything like that. And here's another thing with you is 119 big schools, Power 5, all that, 119 of them. Imagine that there's about 75 to 100 players on them. I'm sure there's actually more than that. 3,200 players roughly in the NFL. Like, you have about 60 to 70 for NFL rosters with injured reserve and about, say, 30 per team in free agency. I know it's a little bit more than that. 3,200. You're going from over 100,000 to 3,200. Again, they don't give a crap about developing, because if you don't do it, they'll find somebody else who will.
Right.
And guess what? Next year, there's a crop of 1,200 new players coming in from college football that they get a look at to replace you. So, no, it's like, sure, we can sit here and we can talk about things that the NFL, that coaches, all these things can do, but it comes down to, it's like, players got to be ready. They got to get ready to work. They got to be ready to have that. They got to have that drive. They got to be not stupid and break rules and stuff like that and get themselves in trouble and lose favor with the coaching staff. It's on them. Like,
right. Yeah, it is. It is.
The way the world works.
Yeah.
It's no different from any other job. You do your job, you stay motivated. Otherwise, they will find somebody to replace you.
Okay. All righty, guys, we're at our hour, but we got a lot of supers that are piling up here. So we're going to run through these really fast. I had a couple of more really good questions here, but maybe I'll hold on to those for Eric for the next time we do this. Give us about a month or so. Probably shortly after the Combine, we'll do another mock draft and then another one of these Would You Rather shows as well. So here in about a month, maybe right about the beginning of free agency. So we'll kind of pass on those. But Travis Weber jumping in again and showing his support, and we appreciate you, Travis, always and forever. Great show, guys, tonight. Wishing you all a great weekend. Before I go, who are you all taking in the Super Bowl? Yes, this is. I'm excited for this conversation. That it is on Sunday. Eric's not watching because he doesn't watch the Super Bowl unless the Broncos are actually in it. I was actually going to ask you that earlier. I really was going to ask you that earlier if you were going to watch the game this year or not.
What was it? The one Seattle Seahawks one? Like, I watched the first quarter of that, then I passed out drunk. But no, I won't watch the Super Bowl this year. I'll try to maybe watch the halftime show. Part of it is I'm just too busy. Like, I've got stuff that I'm doing. I've got scouting stuff. I've got to eventually get around to finishing my scouting list and getting all the guys on that scouted, getting write-ups done. I'm extremely far behind. So no, I'm not going to watch the game. It's going to be too difficult for me to find somewhere to watch it. I don't have cable. I don't have satellite. I have streaming services. So,
So we're actually making the trek down to go see my folks this weekend because they wanted to hang out. We were actually trying to make the trek a couple weekends ago, but it didn't actually work out. But they want to hang out with the kids this weekend. And this is a big reason why. That is my stepson, Jace. So for you guys that are listening after the fact, you don't get to see the picture, but that is my stepson, Jace. He's 13 years old, and he is wearing his favorite player's jersey because his favorite team is the Cincinnati Bengals, and he has a Logan Wilson jersey on. So for Jace's sake, and because I want to see him be absolutely miserable, I'm rooting for the Rams. No, I'm just playing that. I want Jace to win a Super Bowl. So shortly after I took that picture, I was asking him a bunch of questions. And he says, I'm 13 years old. I've never seen what a playoff game looks like. I don't understand what's going on right now. All I know is that we're going to the bleeping Super Bowl. And he actually said the bleep word that you're not supposed to say on shows like this. He didn't get in trouble for it because he was that excited. But yes, I will be rooting for the Cincinnati Bengals and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and my guy, Logan Wilson from the University of Wyoming, from Casper, Wyoming, Natrona County High School. So, I've got enough reasons to root for the Bengals. I would like to see Von Miller win another Super Bowl.
That's the whole reason to go for the Rams.
I understand that, but you know what? My family
Aaron
is
Donald,
a lot.
Matt Stafford.
Yeah, my family's a lot closer to me than the Broncos are, and I know how terrible that sounds because I bleed orange and blue, but you know what? I have to bleed orange and black this weekend, damn it. Oh, man. So Peter jumping in here. Sounds like a good year to trade our top pick for a quarterback then. Yes, please do. Please do trade for Aaron Rodgers.
Thing of how overvalued first-round picks are. Like, just super overvalued.
The Rams haven't had a first-round pick in like the last 4 years. They don't have another one for the next 2 or 3 years, and they're in the Super Bowl this year. Like, first-round picks are great to help build the core of your roster, but if you're using those first-round picks to get you players that are actually proven and like proven commodities, it's working out pretty well for the Rams, I'd say.
And none of it matters if you don't have a quarterback.
Exactly. Lawrence Rivera jumping in here. Who's the top athletic trainers to seek out this year? Because everyone knows we need a good one after the last 2 seasons. And Lauren Landau, I don't know. That one is. I got one. It wasn't necessarily an athletic trainer, but he was the strength and conditioning coach at our high school, Coach Scott Schultz, who was actually working, I believe, in Colorado Springs, or at least the last time. Oh, wait, no. He actually moved back to Wyoming. Never mind. There's a good strength and conditioning coach, but that's just because he's a guy that I know. So maybe I'll shout him out if I see him here in the next couple of days. Michael Ronquillo, great show tonight, Lance and Eric on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. Go Broncos. And as always, Michael, thank you for your support. We appreciate you, buddy. Scott, what you got next? There's a big one here from Naj. We got to grab Naj, who was awesome at the Mile High Huddle meet and greet. Sorry, Scott, I'll grab this really fast. Naj came in, and he actually got yelled at. Eric, I don't know if you were standing right there when that actually happened. So we were sitting there behind watching Chad and Zach chop it up on the post-game show. And Naj has a dirty mouth. He's a potty mouth. He likes to say words that he's not supposed to say on live shows and stuff like that. And Chad actually turned around and said, Naj, easy with the F-bombs, dude. We're live right now. So it was actually pretty funny. But Naj says, appreciate you, brothers. Enjoy the weekend and go Broncos. And as always, Naj, we appreciate you as well, buddy. What you got here? Leaf jumping back in. I think we as fans have unrealistic expectations of young quarterbacks. They used to do an apprenticeship for a reason.
Times changed.
Yeah.
Like you gotta start winning earlier. Like you can't be afforded that time. One of the biggest reasons for that is the rookie wage scale now. You're not investing big money on these quarterbacks to where, not like they were, to where you kind of sit there and got to keep going with them. Like you can't afford the time. Coaches, they can't afford that time to try to get a young quarterback going. You get 2, maybe 3 years anymore as a quarterback to turn it around and start winning.
Well, think about this for a second, guys. Sam Bradford, when Sam Bradford was the number 1 overall pick for the St. Louis Rams back then, he got a 6-year deal for $72 million. Most of it was guaranteed. Like 6 years, $72 million. Like back was 2007, I think is when he was drafted. That was a lot of money. Like that's huge. That's more money than Justin Simmons makes now. Like, and Justin Simmons is one of the top 5 safeties in the NFL. That was a quarterback contract back. That was the number 1 overall contract back in 2006, whatever the hell year it was. Like, you had you had that big of an investment in that position, in that player, that you had to stick with him. You had to see where it would go. And Bradford had a pretty decent career. Like, honestly, he really did have a pretty decent career for the most part. He was not worthy of the number 1 overall. The injuries, the broken collarbones twice, torn ACL twice as well. Like he played well, but he wasn't worth $72 million. And back then you had to bank on that. Now with the uptick in the way that these rosters turn over and stuff like that, the not spending so much money on like Eric said, the rookie wage scale and stuff like that. But also, how about this one? The landscape of the NFL, especially in the AFC. Think about what you have right now in the AFC. You have 4 of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL are playing on the AFC side of the conferences, okay? Pat Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, like that's 4 guys right there. Potentially Aaron Rodgers, potentially Russell Wilson, like 5, 6, 7 guys that play on the AFC side that are all under the age of 30 that are going to be taking over the NFL for the next 10 years. If you don't have a quarterback, especially in the AFC, that can compete with those guys, you're doing it wrong. Like, you have to have a guy. You have to have that quarterback, and like preferably a young guy that can grow into something elite and grow into something special that you can go toe-to-toe with those guys for the next 10 seasons, because that's what it's going to take. Like, you need to have that quarterback hit immediately.
Yeah. Well, guys, we got to wrap it up. Got mess from Chad. He's got contact going up on Facebook, so we got to get out of here. Otherwise, it creates some issues. So we weren't able to get to your stars or your super chats. I apologize. Something that we absolutely hate doing, not being able to get to it. But Lance kind of went off a little bit longer than I expected on that, and a few other things. And, I mean, it's all good. We'll try to get to them next week if you guys are in here and if we remember them. Thank you guys for joining us, and I'll let Lance take it off from here.
Yeah, and again, guys, thank you all for joining us on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. You can find us on Twitter by finding me at Sanderson MHH, for Eric at Erick Trickel, and also shout out to Scott Kennedy behind the glass running the 1s and 2s at Scout Kennedy. While you guys are at it, guys, at Mile High Huddle, that's the mother account where you're going to find breaking news and analysis on your Denver Broncos, film breakdowns, opinion articles, anything regarding the Broncos. That's where you guys are going to find it. Facebook supporters, make sure you guys go to facebook.com/Mile High Huddle. Click that blue Become a Supporter button where you guys are going to get premium content like the Trickel Zone, like Kelberman's Corner, Broncos Book Club with Chad Jensen. Maybe I might try to sneak in some special appearances on some of those shows, do some more draft breakdowns with Eric on the Trickel Zone, something like that. I don't know. We'll see what happens here, but that's a great way to support the show. Folks, if you guys are financially able to do so, and you want to help support the show in a great way, go to huddleuppod.com. That's the merch tent, guys. That's where you get this State of Being Mile High Huddle hoodie. You can get a Dove Valley Deep Divers hat. There's a face mask. There's a coffee cup for Broncos for breakfast. Another Huddle Up podcast, a coffee cup, a onesie for your baby, something for the guys, something for the gals, anything to suit your fancy. That's where you're going to get it, is huddleuppod.com. And folks, if you guys aren't financially able to do so, you don't want to support the show that way, we get it. We really do. Times are tough right now. Inflation's getting ridiculous. But if you guys, wow, that's a ticker now. If you guys are watching the show, regardless, doesn't matter, subscribe, please, to Mile High Huddle on YouTube specifically, but on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Apple Podcasts, wherever you guys get your podcast content, subscribe to Mile High Huddle. If you like it, like every single video you guys see. If you see it on any social media platform, click the like button because that helps a lot. But if you really love it, please share it. Share it out in front of as many Broncos fans as humanly possible, because without your guys' support, we could not do what we do best, which is cover your Denver Broncos. Now, with that, Eric, before we get out of here, is there any last words?
We gotta get out of here. Appreciate it. Peter, I saw you ask a question. Go ahead and hit me up on Twitter. I looked back, I saw it's something that I definitely want to answer. So go ahead and hit me up on Twitter if you have it. I believe you do. I'm not positive. If not, just ask it next week, because it's a question that I really want to talk about.
I know Peter's friends with me or follows me, and I think I follow him on Twitter as well. Send it to me if you don't have Eric, or just get at Eric at Erick Trickel, Trickel, and get it to him there. But yes, if you guys have any questions for us, please come at us on Twitter. We're always available. My phone's on me all the time, so we definitely understand if you guys don't get an opportunity to talk to us on the show. We are more than willing to reach out to you guys as well. So with that, guys, you all stay safe. Take care. Have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Be safe. Please be safe. If you need a driver, get someone to drive you. Don't make any dumb mistakes. Yes, I do drive professionally, by the way, but probably not going to drive very far to go and get everybody, because I might need a driver myself. But please stay safe and take care. Have a great rest of your weekend. As always, go Broncos. And for this weekend only, I'm going to say it right now. Go Bengals. Go Bengals. We'll see you guys next week. Same time, same place on the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Thanks, guys.
You've been listening to the Huddle Up Podcast. Join Broncos Country's deep divers at milehighhuddle.com to keep the conversation going.